book of Kings. We went through First and Second Samuel now, and we went through First Kings, went Second Kings, seeing a lot of things, and a lot of prophecy we've seen have been fulfilled, and a lot are being fulfilled, and a lot are going to be fulfilled. Every jot and tittle is going to come to pass in this blessed book here. Sometimes we don't know. We think we always know when, but God, He teaches us things. We ain't always right about when things are going to happen. So we're picking up 2 Kings 11 today. And when Athaliah, the mother of Azahiah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal. Now this is a interesting verse right here. You know who Athaliah is? Athaliah was a queen. You know who you know where this queen came from? This queen, Athaliah, came from Ahab and Jezebel. This was their daughter. Now get this here. This is important. You remember God pronounced judgment on Ahab's family, on all that pisses against the wall, all the males. He said, all your family's going to be wiped out, Ahab, because you're so wicked. You exceeded everybody before you, Ahab, and He won't wipe you out. But guess what God didn't do? He didn't wipe out the women. And this is a product, a child, a person created in the image of God, Athaliah, who was Ahab and Jezebel's daughter. And it appears she's just as wicked. She's trying to wipe out what God's doing. So I'm going to read that verse again. And when Athaliah, the mother of Azahiah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal, but Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram, sister of Ahijah, took Joash, the son of Ahijah, and stole him from being the king's sons, which were slain. From the king's sons which were slain. And they hid him, even him and his nurse, in the bedchamber of Athaliah, so that he was not slain. And he was with her hid in the house of the Lord 6 years. And Athaliah did reign over the land. Now, another thing we need to know about Athaliah, this is something that's kind of, you got to really study this to understand. I had to re-look at it a couple times. So she is the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel, and she's from the northern kingdom. Remember I said all them kings were wicked? Wasn't no good king from the northern kingdom after the kingdom split? Well, she marries a king from the southern kingdom. Okay? So now they're messing that up. You see what I'm saying? So this is how this is going. You can study this and you'll see it. So she has all these kings killed, supposedly, or the royal line, but God, one is preserved, okay? And he's going to become king. So he's hid for 6 years. We'll pick up in verse 4. And the 7th year, Jehoiada, have y'all got your chart that I gave you? Okay. As we get down in here further, you're going to really need to look at this because a lot of prophets are coming on the scene for these kings. You'll see these names. You look at your chart there before I go further, you're going to see two names. This really gets confusing in studying this right now around this time, because do you see the name Jehoash? Notice that same name on southern and northern. Y'all see this? So these two kings, you had the same name of a king in the northern kingdom as you do in the southern kingdom, and they dwelt during the same time. Does that make sense? So it can get confusing. And the 7th year, Jehoiada sent and fetched the rulers over hundreds with the captains and the guard, and brought them to him into the house of the Lord, and made a covenant with them, and took an oath of them in the house of the Lord, and showed them the king's son. Now this Jehoiada, he seems to be a real godly man, this priest. So he's the one helping preserve Joash, the one that didn't get killed. Verse 5. And he commanded them, saying, This is the thing that ye shall do. A third part of you that enter in on the Sabbath shall even be keepers of the watch of the king's house. And a third part shall be at the gate of Sir, and a third part at the gate behind the guard. So shall ye keep the watch of the house, that it be not broken down. And 2 parts of all you that go forth on the Sabbath, even they shall keep the watch of the house of the Lord about the king. Now he's setting a watch for this young Joash because he's real young. And they're trying to protect him because Athaliah had all the others killed. And ye shall compass the king round about. Verse 8. Every man with his weapons in his hand. Can you imagine coming to the tabernacle church and you're going to carry your weapon with you all the time? People think you're crazy today. It may come a day we have to have a weapon openly carried on our side in this land again. You know, if you ever studied the Black Robe Regiment, they had black robes on, the leaders, the pastors, and yet there was a time in this country, if you didn't have your weapon in church, I'm told, that you was looked down on. You were supposed to bring your weapon to be ready to go fight at any time. Could you imagine living like that? I mean, that went on in this country. You study your history. And it went on before our time, too. You know, you're supposed to protect your neighbor. That's part of loving your neighbor. Supposed to protect the innocent, too. What we're supposed to do. Look what he says here. This is Jehoiada the priest is saying this. Good morning. And you shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapons in his hand. He says weapons, plural. He must have had more than one weapon. And he that cometh within the ranges. So they can only get so close to the king, let him be slain. They ain't trying to wound him. They trying to protect the king. Why? Because Athaliah, the wicked queen that come from Jezebel and Ahab, she done had all these killed, and she wanted to kill him too, because she was wicked. And be ye with the king as he goeth out and as he cometh. He said, you need to be with the king wherever he goes, protect him. And the captains, verse 9, over the hundreds did according to all things that Jehoiada the priest commanded. Now, he was a godly man. And they took every man his men that were come in on the Sabbath with them that should go out on the Sabbath, and came to Jehoiada the priest. Verse 10, when 2 Kings 11, verse 10, and to the captains over hundreds did the priest give King David spears and shields. So now they're giving King David spears and shields that were in the temple of the Lord. They took them out of the temple and gave them so they could protect this young king. And the guard stood, every man with his weapons in his hand, round about the king, from the right corner of the temple to the left corner of the temple, along by the altar and the temple. And he brought forth the king's son, and he put the crown upon him, and he gave him the testimony. What's that talking about? 2 tablets, the law, testimony of the law. And they made him king and anointed him, and they clapped their hands and said, God save the king. So Athaliah thought she wiped out everybody, but God can always raise somebody up in his time. You have to wonder why he let all them other ones be wiped out. I can't answer that. But he saved. Remember what that promise was to David? There would always be somebody on the throne till it got all the way to Christ. God keeps his promises. We just need to keep ours. Verse 13. And when Athaliah heard the noise of the guard and the people, she came to the people into the temple of the Lord. So this wicked Athaliah, she hears them anointing this king, making him king, and him a child. And when she looked, behold, the king stood by a pillar, as the manner was. The princesses and the trumpeters by the king, and all the people of the land rejoiced, and blew with trumpets. And Athaliah rent her clothes, and cried, Treason, treason. So that lets you know where she stood. She wasn't for what God was doing. She was doing what she wanted to do. That's the way it is there. A lot of people ain't gonna get with God's plan. They got their own plan. The way I used to live, had my own plan. I wasn't trying to be a king. I was the king of my own life though, but I wasn't trying to be a king like this. But it's just as wicked when self is sitting on the throne. Verse 15, but Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains of the hundreds and the officers of the host, and said unto them, have her forth without the ranges, and him that followeth her kill with the sword. So whoever is going after Athaliah, following her and her evil, he says, kill them. For the priest had said, let her not be slain at the house of the Lord. She's fixing to die. And they laid hands on her. And she went by the way by the which the horses came into the king's house, and there was she slain. So God's promise was to wipe out all of Ahab's male descendants. Well, this woman wasn't wiped out. She was wicked too, the queen. She's from the northern kingdom. She marries a king from the southern kingdom, brings it into there. Now both sides got problems. But God's going to bring some correction. He always brings corrections to his people. Ain't none that ain't disciplined. There ain't none that ain't chastened. Every son, what Hebrews says. None without chastisement. If you ain't chastised, then you're not a son. That's a good way to know if you're a real Christian or not. If you're in sin and you ain't being dealt with, you need to be questioning your salvation. Okay? God ain't gonna let you stay in your sin comfortable. You fix to come out of it, or he gonna get you out of it. He will remove you. Verse 17, and Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people. But like I said, this Jehoiada was a godly man. Now, one thing to notice as we read this today, this Jehoash that we're talking about, this young king that didn't get killed, that becomes king, he's going to do a lot of good things for the Lord. And he is kind of hard to understand. You need to think about this as we're going through it. As long as Jehoiada, the priest, is alive, he does what is right before the Lord. But when Jehoiada goes off the scene, you be looking for this, he loses his way. I want to ask you this morning, why are you following the Lord? Are you following it for somebody else? If your husband or wife or your kids ain't around, your grandma, are you going to still follow the Lord? Is it really in your heart? What we find out with a lot of people is they ain't really got it in their heart. They're doing it for rules, for regulation, for somebody else. So was he really saved? I don't know. That's a problem. You just watch this as we go through, you're going to see it. And Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people, and that they should be the Lord's people. Who made the covenant? Jehoiada, the priest. He said, and Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people, that they should be the Lord's people. But were they? All them people? No. They wasn't all real. We're talking about all Israel. That was the covenant, though, that they should be. See, everybody in church ought to be saved, but that don't mean everybody goes to church is saved, though. Between the king also and the people. Verse 18, and all the people of the land went into the house of Baal and break it down. So they made the covenant. Boy, this looks good. They go in there and break down Baal. His altars and his images, break they in pieces thoroughly, and slew Mattan, the priest of Baal, before the altars. Well, all this is good. And the priest appointed officers over the house of the Lord. Verse 19, and he took the rulers over hundreds and the captains, the guard, and all the people of the land, and they brought down the king from the house of the Lord, and came by the way of the gate of the guard of the king's house, and he sat on the throne of the kings. And all the people of the land rejoiced. So everybody's happy. They're getting Baal out. Everything looks like it's going real good. And the city was in quiet. And they slew Athaliah with the sword between the king's house. 7 years old was Jehoash when he began to reign. 7 years old, a king. With God, all things are possible. But remember this, so he was 7 years old and a king, but he had somebody overseeing him. He had Jehoiada the priest looking out for him, directing him. Chapter 12. In the 7th year of Jehu, Jehoash began to reign. And 40 years reigned he in Jerusalem. So this king he's going to reign for 40 years. This one that started 7 years old. And his mother's name was Zibiah of Beersheba. And Jehoash, get it, now watch this right here. And Jehoash did that which was right in the sight of the Lord all the days wherein Jehoiada the priest instructed him. What about when he wasn't there to instruct him? No, it wasn't the same then. But the high places were not taken away. Now you got to ask yourself, why wasn't the high places taken away? The people still sacrificed and burnt incense in the high places. But notice it says in verse 2, he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. Verse 4, and Jehoash said to the priest, all the money, this is this 7-year-old king, he's getting older. He said to all the priests, all the money of the dedicated things that is brought into the house of the Lord, even the money of everyone that passes the account, the money that every man is set at, and all the money that cometh into any man's heart to bring into the house of the Lord, let the priest take it to them, every man of his acquaintance, and let them repair the breaches of the house, wheresoever any breach shall be found. So they was taking up money to prepare the house of the Lord. That's a good thing. Verse 6. But it was so that in the 23rd year of King Jehoash, the priests had not repaired the breaches of the house. So they had got this money, but they didn't do what they were supposed to with it. Now, I don't know where it went. I know where it didn't go. Then King Jehoash called for Jehoiada the priest. This is the guy that was raising him up. This was the guy that was helping him to go the right way. So Jehoash called for Jehoiada the priest. And one thing I was studying this guy lived, Jehoiada, you know how long he lived? He lived a long time based on my study, longer, way more than most people live at this time. He lived to be 130. Seemed to be a godly man. Then King Jehoash called for Jehoiada the priest and the other priests and said unto them, why repair ye not the breaches of the house? Now, I don't know why Jehoash is asking him. Why ain't this being done? Now, therefore, receive no more money of your acquaintance, but deliver it for the breaches of the house. The priests, verse 8, consented to receive no more money of the people. So they didn't take no more money, but it don't seem that this money went where it was supposed to. So they're going to do something else here. Neither to repair the breaches of the house. Verse 9. But Jehoiada the priest took a chest and bored a hole in the lid of it. So imagine this chest sitting there and he cuts a hole in the top. And set it beside the altar. So imagine a chest being set up in the altar in the house of the Lord. And there's a chest sitting there and got a hole in it so they can put money in it. On the right side, as one cometh into the house of the Lord, and the priest that kept the door put therein all the money that was brought into the house of the Lord. And it was so, when they saw that there was much money in the chest, that the king's scribe and the high priest came up, and they put up in bags and told the money that was found in the house of the Lord. Verse 11, and they gave the money, being told, into the hands of them that did the work, that had the oversight of the house of the Lord. And they laid it out to the carpenters and builders that wrought upon the house of the Lord, and the masons, and the hewers of stone, and to buy timber and hewed stone to repair the breaches of the house of the Lord, and for all that was laid out for the house to repair it. Verse 13, howbeit there was not made for the house of the Lord bowls of silver, snuffers, basins, trumpets, and any vessels of gold, or vessels of silver, of the money that was brought into the house of the Lord. So there's only certain things they were going to use this money for. But they gave that to the workmen that repaired therewith the house of the Lord. So the ones that were repairing the breaches of the house of the Lord, they gave this money that was going to this chest. Moreover, they reckoned not with the men into whose hand they delivered the money to be bestowed on workmen, for they dealt faithfully. So apparently it had gotten to the point where they knew that this had to be done. They was all in agreement. Now verse 16, the trespass money and sin money was not brought into the house of the Lord, it was the priest. Y'all know what the trespass money is? You look in Leviticus 5, talks about the trespass, just to refresh our memory. The reason all these things are in there, in Leviticus 5, we read verse 5:15. If a soul commit a trespass and sin through ignorance in the holy things of the Lord, then he shall bring for his trespass unto the Lord a ram without blemish out of the flock, with an estimation by shekels of silver, after the shekel of the sanctuary, for a trespass offering. Jump down to verse number 18. And he shall bring a ram without blemish out of the flock, with thy estimation, for a trespass offering unto the priest. And the priest shall make an atonement for him concerning his ignorance, wherein he erred, and wist it not, and it shall be forgiven him. So this is talking about sin of ignorance. You do something, you think it's possible to sin today in ignorance? I want you to think about that. You realize you commit a sin, you ain't realize it. It might be something you just ain't doing that you ought to be doing. It may not be breaking the 10 Commandments. It might be something you ought to be doing. Or it might be something you ain't doing in faith. You didn't do it in faith. So this is a lot to think about here. We go back to 2 Kings 12 there. Verse 17. Then Hazael, king of Syria, went up and fought against Gath and took it. And Hazael set his face to go up to Jerusalem. And Jehoash, king of Judah, took all the hallowed things that Jehoshaphat and Jehoram and Ahaziah, his fathers, kings of Judah, had dedicated. Now look what he's doing here. Let me finish reading and I'm going to explain a little. And his own hallowed things, and all the gold that was found in the treasures of the house of the Lord and in the king's house, and sent it to Hazael, king of Syria, and he went away from Jerusalem. So this Hazael, king of Syria, is being bought off with money so he won't deal with Israel. It seems that Jehoash just seems like to me he don't inquire of the Lord. You think, did God tell him to sell all the holy things of the temple so another king wouldn't attack them? And the rest, verse 19, and the rest of the acts of Joash and all that he did. Now, sometimes these names are interchangeable. This Jehoash, this name sometimes is Joash, okay? I even said it a while ago, I wasn't thinking when I was teaching here. I'm talking about Jehoash, okay? but his name is pronounced Joash too. Right? And the rest of the acts of Joash, see his changes here, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? So this is the Jehoash that we're talking about here. It's interesting to me that both of these kings, I already said that you have a Jehoash of the northern kingdom and you have a Jehoash of the southern kingdom, and part of their kingdoms, when they were both kings, overlapped a few years. So you really got to be looking who you're talking about here. Now look what happens in these three verses. And the rest of the acts of Joash and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? And his servants arose and made a conspiracy and slew Joash. So his own servants are going to kill him. In the house of Milo, which goeth down to Celia. So remember, this is the same person who was spared when all his other descendants were killed by Athaliah, the wicked queen, who had married. She was from the northern kingdom. Ahab and Jezebel, her mom and daddy. She marries. Now God has separated two kingdoms, but they come back together. It seems to be through this wickedness. And she marries a southern kingdom, the one from David's lineage, the one that God promised. But notice that most of them get wiped out, all them kings except this young man. And here he is. In the end, he is killed through a conspiracy. Verse 21, this is 40 years later, though. See, God does his things when he wants to, at his time. That's what gets us a lot of times. We don't wait on him. We get ahead of him, wait too long, instead of just. And I have to say, I know in my own life, timing is sometimes we get it wrong. Can you look back in your life where you got some timing wrong on something? You either got ahead of God or you didn't wait on him. Can you actually look back in your life and see where you made a bad decision because you didn't wait on the Lord? You know what it says? There's a lot of verses about waiting on the Lord. Them that wait on the Lord. What does it say? What does that mean, renew your strength? They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not grow weary. They shall walk and not faint. Because you're walking in the power of God. Make sense? Verse 21, and Josachar, the son of Shemeth, and Jehozabad, the son of Shomar, his servant, smote him, and he died. And they buried him with his fathers in the city of David. So he was from the southern kingdom. He was buried in the city of David. And Amaziah, his son, reigned in his stead. But if you study him, you're going to see that he did good as long as that priest was alive. But when that priest got out of the picture, he didn't do good. You look him up and study him, you ask if he's considered a good king, it's kind of both ways. But God's going to raise another young king up. He's going to be young too, and he is going to do what's right. It seems like this guy, the point I want to really bring out is, you wonder, did he really have it in his heart? Or did he just have to be told everything to do? You know what I'm saying? The Bible teaches us a lot of things, and some people, I've seen churches where when they lose their pastor, it's like they can't hardly go on. Did the pastor have enough people there that were really mature that they could go on till God sends another man? All kind of issues in life. Your mama, or you have a godly mama and she teaches you, or a godly father, or a godly grandma, but then they go off the scene. Did you become godly? Is it really in you? You know, when you become a new creature, it ought to be some difference. You ought to be able to walk this walk with the Lord. You ought to be learned enough to walk it on your own with him. If nobody else is walking it, will you walk it? That's the question for every one of us. And it ain't going away. It ain't going away. This is going to be what we're going to be facing. Would you follow the Lord if nobody else in your family does? If everybody else walked away, will you keep following the Lord? Will you keep living for the Lord? You will if you really love Him. You will. If you don't, then you need to be examining yourself. I pray this will be a blessing to you today. Any comments or questions?